What would you do if, late at night, inside an empty school, you suddenly heard a child's voice calling your name, even though that child had gone missing decades ago? Tonight, we uncover one of the eeriest unsolved cases in Britain, a story locals still whisper about: the missing child whose voice never left the building. It begins in Sheffield, 1987. A working-class city in South Yorkshire, known for its steel, its quiet suburbs, and for one local secondary school that carried a dark secret. That school, St. Mary's Comprehensive, was an old Victorian-era building, its foundations dating back to the late 1800s. Long corridors, tall arching windows, and a west wing that had been sealed off for renovations since the 1970s. At the center of our story is a 9-year-old boy named Thomas Bailey. Teachers described him as shy but curious, a child who often stayed behind after class to ask questions, or to finish a drawing in his notebook. On the evening of October 14, 1987, Thomas stayed late at school. The reason, according to his best friend, was simple: he'd left his exercise book behind in the classroom, and he didn't want to get in trouble the next morning. It was raining heavily that night. Dark clouds pressed against the school's tall windows. Most students had already gone home. Only a handful of teachers and the school caretaker remained. That was the last time anyone ever saw Thomas Bailey alive. The incident. At 5:45 p.m., a teacher recalled seeing Thomas walking toward the west corridor, the part of the school that led to the gymnasium and the closed-off wing. Minutes later, the caretaker heard what he thought was the sound of laughter echoing down the same hallway. He assumed it was Thomas. But when he went to check, the corridor was completely empty. By 6 p.m., Thomas had vanished. When his parents arrived at the school to pick him up, he wasn't there. Teachers and staff began searching classrooms, storage rooms, the gym, even the boiler room. Nothing. Strangely, 2 things were found. Thomas's shoes, placed neatly against the wall of the west corridor. His notebook, lying open near the staircase, the last page scrawled with a half-finished sentence: "Don't FO." Police were called, and the entire school was searched. Every classroom. Every cupboard. The surrounding streets, the playground, the fields behind the building. There was no sign of Thomas. Tracker dogs brought in later traced his scent down the corridor, and then it simply stopped. As if Thomas had vanished into thin air. The investigation. For weeks, detectives questioned teachers, classmates, even neighbors who lived near the school. No one saw anything suspicious. No forced entry. No footprints. No witnesses. But whispers began to spread. Several students told police they had heard laughter in the west corridor long after the search had begun. A cleaner claimed she heard a child crying in the toilets, but when she checked, they were empty. The case grew colder by the day. Months passed. The posters faded. Eventually, Thomas Bailey was declared missing, presumed dead. But the story didn't end there. The strange reports. By the late 1990s, students at St. Mary's began telling stories about the West Corridor. Those who stayed for detention swore they heard footsteps behind them when no one else was there. Lockers would slam shut by themselves. And sometimes, late at night, they heard a child's voice echoing, "Help me." Caretakers hired over the years all reported the same thing: laughter in the hallway, the sound of running feet, whispers that seemed to come from the walls. One teacher, in 2003, claimed she saw a small figure run past the corridor doors. She chased after it, thinking it was a student. But when she checked the CCTV, the hallway was completely empty. The twist. Decades later, during a renovation project in 2015, workers discovered something unsettling. Behind the plaster wall of the west corridor was a sealed-off storage room. A space that didn't appear on any blueprints. Inside was nothing but dust, cobwebs, and crumbling bricks. No evidence of Thomas. No clues. Just emptiness. And yet, one of the builders swore he heard a child laughing behind him while he worked. Another refused to return after he felt a small hand tug at his sleeve, though no one else was there. When police revisited the files, they found something chilling: Thomas wasn't the only child to vanish in strange circumstances. Over a 10-year period, 2 other children in nearby towns disappeared, both last seen near old schools, both cases unsolved. Was it the work of the same abductor? Or something darker tied to those buildings themselves? To this day, no one knows. Unsolved ending. St. Mary's eventually shut down. The building still stands, locked away behind iron gates, overgrown with weeds. Locals say at night, if you walk past, you can still hear the faint echo of a child laughing in the halls. The case of Thomas Bailey remains unsolved. His body was never found. His voice, however, according to those who dare to listen, never left. So what really happened that October night? Was it a carefully covered-up crime? A hidden room that swallowed a boy forever? Or something not of this world at all? We may never know. Studio microphone, what do you think happened to Thomas Bailey? Was this a human crime, or something far more sinister? Comment your theory below, and don't forget to subscribe for more chilling unsolved incidents.